Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on, Ma? Welcome, you guys, to the Watchlist watch party we got on a Thursday. Sorry, I'm late. Look, this time I can actually blame someone else besides myself. Yeah, sure. I was going to be 5 minutes late, but the only reason I'm 10 minutes late is because live wouldn't work. It told me like three times that it can't let me go up live, but hopefully you guys are still hanging around. You're still going to be here. A lot going on. I think you guys can figure out what it is that we could be talking about today, considering what's been building up all week. And honestly, for the past few months, several months of this Trump administration, looking to pass the main thing that they wanted to pass, which is this spending bill, this agenda bill. It has a lot more into it than just the way that they're cutting people's Medicare and Medicaid, stealing some more from people's entitlements, their Social Security, the lies about what kind of money they'll be getting, the amount of money that's going up to the richest people in the country and corporations, the people that were at that inauguration that paid their way in to have a seat at stealing more folks' money in the country. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about. What's going on, you guys? Letting you guys just come in. We Dieter 72, number one, absolutely. Christina Elisa Brown, how you guys doing? Elisa Ald, good to see you as well. Jew MP Designs, thank you. Glad you guys are here. Since we already got a late start, I might as well get right into this. I mean, why not? So as of right now, I'm watching it as we're doing it. As of Thursday, July 3rd, we're still waiting to see exactly if this bill will be passed in the House, the big spending bill that Republicans forced through the House and also narrowly got out of the Senate just a day ago. It's now back in the House with the Senate version on the table. The holdouts that were there apparently haven't held out long enough because they've all jumped on board. After an all-night session where they're trying to pass it when everyone is asleep, what they've discovered is they're gonna have to wait until the morning when people can see them vote for it. So we're at that point right now. So I'm literally watching it as it's going down. Speaker Mike Johnson is very he's now still happy about it. He says that he's hopeful that they'll be able to pass it. Maybe only one or two GOP holdouts are left. There was about 5 or 6 before that, and I think they could only lose 4. So they've convinced enough people, including the people that you heard Donald Trump railing on, including the folks that said they have so many reservations about the spending, the extra billions of dollars being added to the deficit, all of it, I mean, to the debt. So if they're upset about it, suddenly those folks are suddenly on board. I'll get to some of those names, but I want to at least run down some of the things that Mike Johnson is saying. He said he hasn't slept during the overnight hours in order to make this happen. And he estimated that, yes, they will get it done before July 4th because Donald Trump told them to get it done before July 4th. The one potential holdout left of those ones that were on the holdouts is Representative Brian Fitzpatrick. He's the only one left, and who knows? I mean, he doesn't want to be the only one that's catching the anger of their dear leader. So who knows? I honestly don't trust that any of them will be doing this. Never really did, I got to be honest. So when people were praising and talking about the great things that Rand Paul was saying, or maybe some of the great things that Thomas Massey was saying, there was a whole fight with Thomas Massey. Primary challenges are coming your way. There's Republicans that said that they would be on board or not be on board, and then retirement happened. Tom Tillis was talking about retirements. Okay, so we've gotten to this now point with this bill, and overnight, the reasons why, by the way, this bill still hasn't passed just yet, or even hasn't had a chance to vote on it, is because Hakeem Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries was doing this.
Of this one big ugly bill. Why did debate begin at 3:28 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah.
Republicans are once again, which has been the case, Mr. Speaker, through every step of this journey, tried to jam this bill through the House of Representatives under cover of darkness. But I'm here today to make it clear that I'm going to take my time and ensure that the American people fully understand how damaging this bill will be to their quality of life. And as a result of the lack of health care that will result directly from this one big ugly bill, people in America will die. Unnecessary deaths. That is outrageous. It's disgusting. That is not what we should be doing here in the United States House of Representatives.
So Hakeem Jeffries taking now, I think we've reached to 6 hours. At the time that I first saw that it had been 4 hours he was speaking. Apparently, they have this 1 minute rule where they get to speak unlimited amounts of time, and they take that 1 minute for as long as possible. So he's hit the 6 hour mark to delay it, and he's delaying it, and he knows that eventually it'll get voted on and most likely get passed, and then all the destruction will then take place. But Hakeem Jeffries, as you know, I made fun of him a little bit yesterday talking about the baseball bat picture. The baseball bat picture that he had up where someone was a little bit higher than him, so he looked even short. And he was standing with his baseball bat saying he's going to fight. This is the fight. So listen, man, I still don't like much of what Hakeem Jeffries and his establishment approach to everything else he's talking about, he's doing, but he's trying something. And because of the history of it, of him and the way he's been doing things and his opposition to actual progressiveness within the party, he's trying something, and again, because of the history, it makes me still just see it as performative, but at least it's something. So yeah, I want to give him at least the credit for doing something, and I know it's only a delay, but it's frustrating the hell out of these Republicans, so they don't really like that aspect of it. But I mean, do what you can, bro, and I guess that's what he can do. We just wish before now he would have done something. There was a lot of trust in what these folks maybe were going to be on the up and up about. The easy confirmation of many of these folks that are in the cabinet positions, where they're continuing to destroy those cabinets and turn them into just another arm of Donald Trump's executive power over everything in the country. So we get the frustration, and fine, congratulations to Hakeem Jeffries for doing something, as little as it even may be. Again, I'm gonna check back and see if anything has happened yet. Still nothing yet. They're still trying to take that final vote, and I guess Hakeem is still speaking. He said a couple of things that made some sense, but I do want to say one other part about this, because Steve Scalise, one of the leadership within the Republicans in the House, just under Mike Johnson, he didn't like so much that this speech was happening either, though. So he decided to rail on him a little bit and talk about how ridiculous it is.
The American people are watching this. They know the theatrics and the lies, and they're sick and tired of the lies. They want hope and optimism. That's what Donald Trump ran on, is to say there is a better America. You don't have to have 4 years of malaise under Joe Biden, where inflation's high, gas prices are high. You can't even fill up your grocery cart. Crime's out of control. Illegals are running rampant, millions a year. We finally are fixing those problems, and this bill really delivers on the rest of those promises to get this country back on track, to bring hope back to people who want to control their own destiny. Democrats will stand in the way. That's why they're a party of the past. That's why they're a party of failure and socialism. Americans have rejected that. The American people.
So again, it's still this basis for, look, they hate this country. They don't want things work the right way. We've seen the details of the bill. That's the thing. We've seen the details of the bill. We've seen the effects of the bill. But there's just this bulldozing over those actual facts behind it and saying, listen, we're bringing back prosperity to the country. And despite the fact that everyone has seen, from the scores from the CBO to the way that we've pointed out how we're giving money away to the richest of the country, it's actually doing great for the rest of the country. No tax on tips, which has a limit on it. The Social Security, there's so many lies within the things that they said they're giving away, which are, by the way, minuscule compared to the tons of money that they're siphoning from lower and middle income earners of the country and sending it up to the richest. It's off the charts. So there's Steve Scalise doing his best to talk about it. But I did want to point this out. Representative Brendan Boyle, he came forward during the discussions about this bill when it was being formed, and he exposed a lot of what it is that these Republicans are doing. But there's one other aspect here that he did point out as they built their way to this. Yesterday, we saw how hard it was to get this bill out of the Senate. And now as they're back in the House, there were so many that said some that were against it, and they're now all on board. So Representative Brendan Boyle points out what is that makes that happen. And I guess you have to take his word for it, but we'll see what he has to say.
When you talk privately, Congressman, you got a bunch of friends on the Hill who are Republicans, presumably. When you speak to them privately, they know what this bill is going to do to the deficit. They know what it's going to do to rural hospitals in some of their states or urban hospital kind of district they represent. They tell you behind the scenes about how they get to yes on that.
You know, it is amazing. I really wish that what some Republicans say in private could become public, because it's always, in whispered, hushed tones, I don't agree with Donald Trump. I don't think this is good legislation. I'm concerned about deficit and debt. But then they always look around and say, shh, don't tell anyone that I said that. The reality is, so many of my Republican colleagues are deathly afraid of Donald Trump. Just yesterday, or I'm losing track of what day it is now, but maybe about 36 hours ago, there was a markup in the Rules Committee, and you had a couple of self-described fiscal hawks on the Republican side vote against this legislation because of its massive increase in the deficit and debt. Well, now here they are about to vote for the bill, even though not one word of the bill has changed. They call it the Freedom Caucus, the HFC. Really, I think it stands for the House Folding Caucus.
When you talk privately.
So, I don't know. So I guess a bit of a zinger there at the end. There should be the House Folding Caucus. I don't know, whatever. So I think there has been energy that comes from these guys, and I get his point that he's making. Yes, it's good to have a pun there, but the main point here is, I think what we can pretty much believe, because we've seen them say it themselves. These folks that are voting for this are afraid of Donald Trump. They're afraid of the revenge tour that he have on them. They're afraid of the retaliation and the primary calls and the things that he says he would do to them. So they get on board because they're weak. It's just the way these things work. So I saw some people responding to what Representative Boyle was saying there and said, yeah, sure, you're going to believe this guy? And you wouldn't believe him because it's not convenient for your point of view. And I get that would work vice versa. But like I've been keep saying, this administration and these folks that are doing this, they've been lying since the beginning. What's the purpose of believing someone who's a completely an adjudicated liar? Like, it's been proven over and over again. They're liars. They're lying to us directly. They're talking about the details of this bill in opposite terms of what it actually does. They talked about the people at the town halls who protested and pushed back and asked questions angrily at them as some paid agitators with absolutely no evidence of it. They constantly lie. What is it about this party, this MAGA party, that would make you believe anything they have to say? Everything they've said is a lie. Everything. So where's the trustworthy part? We forgot the point of not lying as a politician so that people can trust what you say. But they've really never been there. But again, you don't even have to listen to Representative Boyle, because Zinke, what's this guy's name? Ryan Zinke. Listen to this glowing endorsement that he had for the bill. Again, this is a Republican talking about this bill and how good it is that they're hopefully going to get this across.
You know, it probably has too much salt, not enough pepper. There's some small gambling issues in it that can be corrected, but I don't think that this is the vehicle to correct it. Overall, there's no poison pills in it. If you're a fiscal hawk on one side, you know, you're probably not satisfied. If you're moderate on the other side, you're not satisfied. Right. So overall, I think this is the best we can do at the moment.
Best you can do it.
So you vote for a bill, this huge bill that has been exposed for how bad it is, and your answer is, it's the best we can do at the moment. I mean, I'm not saying it's great. It probably has too much salt, not enough pepper. It kind of sucks. I mean, we rushed it across because the president keeps telling us to rush it across. None of us really like it, but we're all afraid of him. So it's the best that we can do, because the whole purpose is to shove it through. I remember Republicans used to talk about shoving bills through and not reading all of the pages, and then how the American people don't know what's in it. They even had calls for legislation to make sure that things are read to a certain degree, which I wouldn't be against. Why can't you read what's in the bill? But it has been read, it's been analyzed, and it's been shown for what it is. And that's why he's even talking about how there's too much salt and not enough pepper. They're admitting it themselves, this bill sucks, but they kind of have to do it. I'm just pointing that out. As someone else, Tim Burchett from Tennessee. I want to shift to this guy. Tim Burchett went on CNN and he posted this interaction he had with Brianna Killar, and he said as if he ate. He said, my wife had spaghetti for dinner. I had some CNN. Tim Burchett is still trying to defend this bill, but he doesn't know the hypocrisy that he's got around his own stances. I want you guys to watch what he thinks him just going off on CNN looked like.
are going to be kicked off of healthcare until you were against the CBO.
No, ma'am. You listen. If you want to do the editorial, just go ahead, and you don't need me on here. But the
These
CBO,
are facts, sir. I don't
like
have to
see
editorialize.
Scores. I would like to see what the economic output of every bill. You as a taxpayer should want that too. And the CBO is the only organization we have. If I could allow a private accounting firm to do it, I would much rather that happen. But the reality is it would have to be the CBO. And what do you have against knowing how much each bill is spent? Why is the media opposed to that? Why do you all on the left always fight every chance at America knowing what's going on? The problem y'all have with this bill, ma'am, is that it gets government out of our way and lets Americans make some decisions. And maybe hardworking Americans would have a better choice and a better shot at life in this country without you all just telling us how bad things are going and trying to construct, and as you're doing with me, trying to dictate what I've said. And the reality is the CBO is a partisan organization. And the reality is America has a right to know how much we're spending on every piece of legislation. I cannot believe you as a member of the media would not want open records. And that is exactly what that bill would do.
So he thinks he's arguing in a way that passed this bill that would allow them to have open records and secrets of what's spending. That's what we found out in that CBO a breakdown of what happens in this bill. The CBO that he's now saying he's against. He has more. I want you guys to keep in mind, by the way, he's saying he's against the CBO because it's biased somehow, and he wants some private folks that he can pay off to read the bill and analyze it whichever way he likes. Again, Tim Burchett of Tennessee is against the CBO. He's going to continue on. Again, he thought he ate here.
Sir, we have reported on what is in this bill. We do that time and again.
Ma'am, you all are trying to scare. Are you talking about the big, beautiful bill? You all just try to scare America by telling millions of people are going to be cut off this thing. You're talking about the people that are on it illegally, that are gaming the system. And that is, and
no,
you,
we're not. The CBO,
the
CBO is very clear.
The bill does not do anything of what you've said. And all you've done is scare America, and you're not doing a service to this country, ma'am. And you all ought to start talking. You want to talk about transparency, and then there you are attacking me on a bill where I'm trying to make it transparent how much we're spending on each piece of legislation. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
You wanted to have the CBO estimate, and you're now railing against
that is
CBO
the only
estimates.
organization. That is the only organization.
That's the only organization we got. I hate it so much, though. So Tim Burchett, again, thought that he was just railing on Breonna Taylor. And I know she was quiet for a long time during that. I think they tell many of the anchors on these networks to just, let them roll because maybe we won't get access to them again. Maybe that's the question. Or maybe the other part is they figure they're on the right side of this argument. So they let this guy just talk his way through it because he was angry. You guys know how mad he was? He wasn't this mad at all when his when those kids in his district got shot up at that little, I think it was a Catholic school in Tennessee, where that school shooter ran up and shot those children, and he came out and said, we're not going to do anything about it. That was years ago. And guess what they've done about it? That's that same Tim Burchett. I want you guys to remember who he is. Every time we mention Tim Burchett, I want you guys to remember how he talked about those kids that got murdered in that school and how he just doesn't give a damn. His child is homeschooled, so who cares? And he says, your children can get shot up in schools. They just got mad at Maxwell Frost for pointing this out in a committee hearing. They wanted his words stricken from the record. But this Tim Burchett is the guy who told you right after that shooting he doesn't give a damn. Should his words be stricken from the record? Because he's admitting to what it is he doesn't like. Sorry, went on a side note about Tim Burchett. This is what he was so mad at Breonna Taylor about, because he does not like being exposed for his hypocrisy on the CBO.
So you're taking issue with the CBO estimate here?
Yes, ma'am, I do have an issue with it. The office is very partisan. I mean, 85% of the people in their healthcare division identify as a Democrat, or they've contributed to Democrats, or they're registered Democrats. They're leading, I believe their leading economist is that. We ought to do away with these organizations because we use them when we like them. We don't use them when we don't like them. And you've got a bunch of bureaucrats in here that are on a lifetime gravy train. And frankly, we've got independent agencies that can do that. We have people up here with accounting degrees that can do the math. So I feel like that is a waste of taxpayers' money.
So in January 2024, there was a Republican who trusted the CBO so much that they reintroduced a resolution to require the House clerk to read the CBO estimate of any bill. I believe that was you, sir, the third time you introduced that resolution. Is that right?
That's correct, ma'am. Of course, and that proves
But
just
you
what
don't
I
like
said.
the you don't like the CBO now.
Ma'am.
But you don't like the CBO now. You introduced that resolution over multiple years, but now you're dissing the CBO.
Did the bill pass?
Your resolution?
Did the bill pass? Yes, ma'am.
You introduced it, sir.
I know
It's
it, ma'am, but did it
irrelevant.
pass? They never pass because nobody wants any verification. It proves my point. When it serves us well,
you took a
when it
stance and you were
serves us well, we're for it. But when it doesn't, we don't.
Is that supposed to be a flex? I got exposed for pushing this resolution to have the CBO score read for every bill that happens in the House. And then when you are now for it, or at least for this bill, you're against the CBO score and what it says about what's in your bill and the spending behind it. But that proves my point. It proves your point that you're a hypocrite. It proves that you're the guy that you're talking about that only likes the CBO score when it fits your narrative. Isn't that weird? But then when exposed about it, he thinks he can flip everything on its head and say directly, I told you that's my point. I'm a hypocrite. That's the point. I tried to push this resolution that didn't get passed. So, because the rest of the House apparently is just as hypocritical as he is, fine. I think we already knew that. But everyone else is hypocritical in the House, so therefore I'm just one of them. That was his point. Well, that was your point once you got exposed. I don't think he was prepared for her to expose him on his hypocrisy over the CBO score, being accurate when it's in his favor and inaccurate when it's not in his favor. But then after being exposed for trying to make that a definite process in reading the CBO score, why that proves my point. That doesn't do anything else. And I'm so done with Tim Burchett. I've got other things to talk about. Sorry, I actually didn't even want to go that long with that story, but Tim Burchett is annoying. This guy's crazy. Let's see which one I'm going to go to next. I've got other stuff to talk about though. Yeah. Let's go this way, you guys. So one more second. I saw a couple of super chats. I want to say that really fast. Christina, Elisa, thank you for the super chat. Love and peace and blessings to me and the TYT family. We need to party every day. I mean, I've got to tell you guys, tomorrow, 4th of July begins. We'll not be doing the live watch party on a Friday, so you guys got to save your drinks for next Friday. Apologies. Happy holidays, and please don't drink and drive. Be safe and hit the like button. Thank you for reminding me. Like, share, and also subscribe if you guys haven't yet. Good to see you guys all. Thank you again for it. But next up, as far as this bill is going, they've debated this bill. They could be voting on it right now. Who knows? And already been passed as I'm talking about this. But there's an aspect of this bill. Many folks are talking about ways stealing people's their money, kicking people off of healthcare, Social Security, the devastating aspects of this bill. And it has been reported, but I don't know if to the right degree, exactly what's happening with ICE and the kinds of powers and money that they'll be getting to continue these mass deportations that are literally grabbing Americans and non-Americans off the streets, all that they want without any kind of accountability. I want you guys to see exactly how bad this looks and where it really stands on a world stage. Check this out.
Congressman, I've been struggling a little bit with how best to visualize and communicate the size of the money being directed to ICE here. I saw something today about it would make ICE one of the largest militaries in the entire world, a budget larger than the entire Brazilian military, for example. Like, how do you understand what this money means?
It would be enormous and huge. As you mentioned, it would be more money than the federal prison system now in the United States. And it will exceed the amount of money that some countries even use on their military. This is really a way to pander to their base. J.D. Vance saying that everything else is immaterial is a slap in the face to people who care about things like their health care, who care about things like food assistance programs so that they don't go hungry. We will see what you saw happening in Los Angeles on steroids if there's such a huge infusion of money. And what a waste of money.
What a huge waste of money. And I'm glad she made that point about what's going on in Los Angeles. The whole point of these extra billions of dollars that they're sending to ICE, and then they're building these prisons like the one they just threw together down in the Everglades with the alligators and the Alcatraz, is to spend more of your money on more of this prison group, or this militarized group that's going and throwing people in random prisons in places. This is the militarization of the United States of America. I want to show you guys this graph because it kind of illustrates just how bad this is. She did point out, along with Chris Hayes, of how bad this would be. I want to make this bigger. So the Tennessee Holler pointed this out, also reposted this from Ian Brimmer, who pointed out this graph, how this bill would make this budget for ICE, specifically just ICE within this budget, larger than most of the world's militaries. You see the red point there on this. It's $37.5 billion. That's ICE. That's not a country. That's this Gestapo organization within the United States who's sweeping people off the streets with no questions, and also with unidentified agents, some people even posing as it. So look, they got more money. They're going to, if this passes in wherever time it could be passing, this ICE agency, their military group, would be getting more money than Switzerland, Brazil, Netherlands, Israel, and Italy, and just below Canada by about $4 billion, $3.5 billion. This ICE agency, as we pointed out before, was quickly morphed into Trump's military police, his private military, who can go through the streets, and they'll be used for things other than just deporting anybody that they feel like going and attacking and cutting up IDs and telling them they have no rights and threatening to kill them. Where's the American exceptionalism of this program? And it's just below, again, Canada and South Korea. This is how much money that they're proposing to put towards ICE. You notice they're not talking about that as much. They call it border security and securing our nation, when really what it is attacking our nation. They need that much money to unleash this army onto American citizens. There's one particular representative that's against this, and he's always fighting. You've seen those couple of younger cats down in Tennessee that are fighting for it. One of them is Representative Justin Jones. He had something specific to put forward as an actionable thing to fight back against this, not just talking, not holding baseball bats or doing any kind of performative arts to push back on the agenda of these Republicans. Justin Jones is actually talking about ways to stop this, and it has to put people on blast to actually try and do something about it. Let's watch what he.
This bill is about public safety. This is actually what was identified as an ICE operation. This is not a partisan issue, let's be clear. This is an issue of what is right and wrong. In Brooklyn, a man told a 51-year-old Latina woman that he was an ICE agent. He led her to a stairwell, tried to rape her. In North Carolina, a man pretended to be an ICE agent and threatened to deport a woman if she did not have sex with him. In Philadelphia, a man robbed a business while masquerading as an ICE officer and detained a 50-year-old woman from the Dominican Republic using zip ties. And most recently, in Minnesota, state lawmakers were murdered by a man who was pretending to be a law enforcement officer. We gather here to say that there's nothing more un-American than an anonymous extrajudicial police force that can kidnap our citizens from the streets. There's nothing more un-American than this abuse of power and lack of accountability. And so today I call on my colleagues, both Democrat and Republican, join on as co-sponsors of House Bill 1442.
House Bill 1442 there, as I was pointing out, Representative Justin Jones putting forward to stop these unidentified masked agents and criminals from just doing anything they want. And as he pointed out from multiple articles and stories that happened of people acting like ICE agents, and ICE agents not sure if they're acting like ICE agents, but they're acting like criminals, telling people they need to take them into this back room or kidnap them into this one area, sexual assault, rape, potentially trying to be carried out on folks. Who knows, even murder, right? So wouldn't the people that are legitimate law enforcement officers be against people posing as law enforcement officers so they can go and carry out any kind of filthy techniques and crimes that they want to? They'd be upset about it if they weren't also doing maybe some of that same stuff or doing illegal activity. It wasn't the only thing Justin Jones was talking about. He elaborated further about ways to do something about this. I love that he's an actionable legislator.
Before I filed this, I want to make clear that I made an effort to meet with Commissioner Long, and Commissioner Long told me he can identify the ICE agents. They don't have any record. What if we gave our citizens to vigilantes, to kidnappers? We don't even know where some of them are. That is unacceptable.
Have we seen examples of any masked officers or folks who are masked in our ICE agents here in Tennessee?
Every ICE agent that I saw was masked, but the ICE agents chose to put a flashlight in my face, so we couldn't even take their picture.
In this photo, you can see that they say police, they say ICE, they have all of that gear on.
Some of these men who were trying to rape women bought their vest, an ICE jacket from Amazon. So that alone is not enough. I mean, this is not Star Wars. We do not want stormtroopers out policing our community.
Did those reporters, have they been paying attention? One reporter asked, have you seen any evidence of ICE agents with masks on their faces? Have you seen evidence of ICE agents without masks on their faces? That's all they do. And then the other reporter, she was wondering, so how is it that it's possible that they're posing as ICE agents if they're wearing police gear that you can get on Amazon? I mean, come on. Someone else was also wearing another Halloween costume as they ran up and acted like someone else. And let's not forget one of the first things that Jones said there. One of the bigger high-profile stories of someone posing as law enforcement officer right before they murdered that state representative, Representative Hortman in Minnesota, was because he was posing as a police officer, knocking on people's doors with the kill list that he had compiled. Again, this danger goes beyond them just talking about who they think are these criminal, illegal aliens that are on the streets that they assume ICE agents are going and picking up off the streets and taking them from the rape that they were on their way to commit. Like, it's cartoonish thought process. But when it's reality and when people are posing as ICE agents and actually harming people, effing crickets. He's not done. There's a little bit more from Justin Jones. He had more questions that he was taking from these folks, and they were pretty easy to answer.
There are officers that say, this is my job and I am worried about my safety. What would you say to that?
That when you sign up to be a law enforcement officer, you don't sign up to be anonymous. That is what is literally called the Gestapo, a secret police force. In America, we have a tradition of law enforcement proudly having badges, showing their face, knowing who your law enforcement officer is, so you have trust between them. Allowing mass officers to exist actually makes officers more unsafe. We heard this from Andy Ogles. We heard this from a few members. There has been no statistical data provided that there's an increase of lack of safety for ICE agents. And so the safety that we're concerned about are to the people we still don't know where they are, kidnapped, not just by ICE, but by people who are disguising themselves as law enforcement. This bill is an anti-human trafficking bill. This bill is a public safety bill. This is not an issue of left or right, but this is a moral issue of what is right and wrong.
When you did ask for identification, they did show you a badge, correct?
Incorrect. And we're intentionally non-responsive. No ICE agent was willing to identify themselves. None of these masked men were willing to identify themselves. You know, everyone's going to be talking about freedom and liberty this weekend. Let's come and pass some laws that are rooted in freedom and liberty and protection of all people.
You hear those two questions that she asked? So, I mean, the ICE agents say they feel unsafe. Has she looked into how many ICE agents have actually been assaulted or identified and stalked out? That was Tom Homan's talking point when he said, or also the director of ICE, we have to protect our agents because, you know, there's death threats coming as we go and push out death threats to citizens in the streets. Can you believe they're threatening my children's lives if I just told them I'm going to murder you and send your remains back to your family? Can you believe they would do this to us? She knew better. She knew better. And I'm not sure if she had to ask those questions in order to get the answer rather than writing her piece and saying it. She had to maybe quote the representative as dispelling those rumors. So I'm not gonna judge her, I guess her objective in doing that and what she was trying to get. But come on, the ICE agents feel unsafe. And they identified themselves, right? No, that's been what the whole agency is talking about. They're not identifying themselves. That's their point. Why would they identify themselves when they just said, we're not going to identify ourselves? Bro, just listen to the people that are committing the crimes. They're telling you that they're committing them. Just believe them when they're telling you that they're committing them. There was also members of the community that came out as well. We'll talk really quickly about them because it's more than just Justin Jones. In case people don't like Justin Jones being who he is, a younger black person that's in Tennessee, pushing for actual change to happen in a state that really doesn't want it. At least the leadership of the state really doesn't want it. Check this part out.
Of people being picked up. They don't even have the time to ask for an ID. They don't even have the time to call for help. And that's what these impersonators are counting on. What I worry about, in addition to being an immigrant, is the women in it. We have to do preventive measures. That's what this does.
They're asking our attorneys, how will I know if it's ICE? and we're unable to answer that question. If the objective here was truly about public safety, there are humane legal manners in which to detain people.
I think back to masked men I saw when I was growing up, which was some time ago, when masked men marched down the streets of my town and wore their white robes and their hoods pulled down tight over their shoulders. And this time it's a different uniform, but the fear it creates is the same. This unchecked power is dangerous and wrong. I ask you to consider, is this what our faith calls us to do?
Even a faith leader there, as you saw, a priest there that was talking about how she's seen this in the past. I guess they needed a white lady to say it. Because if a black person says this is reminiscent of the Klan marching down the streets, saying they can pick up anybody they want, and they're backed by the government to do so and be as violent and vicious and bigoted as they want, I think we're finally figuring out what they mean when they said, let's make America great again. Back in those days, it's pretty obvious. It's just a matter of whether or not we're willing to admit it and actually do something about it, rather than political theater saying you're going to eventually. I got one more, you guys. I got one more. It's a little bit different, but still devastating. May I? Let me bring it up for you. You guys remember the case of Kilmar Garcia? I mean, that kind of just went away. It was a big story, blew up all over the place. Many Democrats were talking about how he was one of the first cases of his rights being taken away, as they just took him off the streets and deported him to that prison in El Salvador where murderous things happen. That's part of what we're talking about here. But what they're definitely upset about is that they finally had to bring him back and then charge him with these other charges. The problem with those charges that our federal government, the Department of Justice, is charging Kilmar Garcia with is that they don't even want that trial. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But, you know, if you're a criminal administration, it makes a whole lot of sense. Watch this.
Lawyers for Kilmar Garcia are fighting to keep him in federal custody amid concerns the U.S. could deport him again. Garcia was mistakenly sent to El Salvador in March, but was brought back to the U.S. earlier this month to face federal charges of human smuggling. Now, the case is ongoing, but his lawyers say they don't know what the government plans to do with their client. They wrote in a court filing, quote, "The government apparently has little interest in actually bringing this case to trial. Instead, it's chosen to bring Mr. Abrego back only to convict him in the court of public opinion."
Isn't that weird? So CBS News was reporting that these the folks that have brought these charges against Kilmar Garcia, because the Supreme Court said you have to bring him back. By the way, a guy that this administration and these folks in charge said they mistakenly deported. And then once he was mistakenly deported, they want to just leave him there anyway. So if your brother, father, son was mistakenly deported to a murderous prison in El Salvador, where he literally said, do with them whatever you want, I think it means something to want to bring him back when they admitted that they mistakenly sent him away, because they don't care. That's the whole purpose. How many other people were mistakenly sent away? Talk to some of these Republicans and conservatives and MAGA folks that say, man, these Democrats are really obsessed with this one guy who had domestic violence charges against his girlfriend or wife. He's an example of what it is they've done to probably many more people and other folks' rights that they've taken away. Their right to a trial, their right to even these charges being something that gets even brought up. Because afterwards they send people away, and Tom Homan goes on Fox News and says, well, we brought up all these people. We just have these backdoor ways of finding out what happened. That's what Tom Homan talks about, instead of actually bringing forward charges, because they're bypassing the judicial process because they're criminals. Usually criminals run away from the law, right? That's what we always learned. There's a little bit more on this. Here's the details of why it is that they're trying to avoid having this trial. Again, this whole case is Kilmar Garcia's attorneys want to keep him in jail because they're trying to make sure that the government don't get their hands on him to do more egregious things. Isn't that crazy?
Administration said about the possibility of deporting Garcia.
Kelly, there's a really interesting new twist in this case. As you know, Kilmar Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador and only brought back to face federal charges related to what the Justice Department alleges was a scheme by him and other individuals to smuggle undocumented immigrants into the U.S. and to transport them from the Texas border to Maryland, where he lived with his U.S. citizen child and wife. But now the government was supposed to release him from federal criminal custody so ICE could pick him up and detain him pending deportation proceedings. His lawyers today, however, asked the federal judge overseeing the criminal case to delay that release from federal criminal custody because they are concerned that Mr. Abreu Garcia could be, yes, detained, but also deported to a third country. And that is really important because while the government has no legal authority to deport him to El Salvador because of that 2019 order that blocked that deportation, it does have the authority to deport him to any other country in the world. And the Justice Department prosecutors in this case indicated as much, that they will try to deport him to a third-party country if he is indeed taken into immigration custody. The lawyers have asked for his release to be delayed through July 16. We're waiting on a ruling from the judge in Nashville to see if they actually grant that.
The attorneys for the guy who's been charged want him to stay in jail while they're waiting for trial because the government wants to get their hands on him and send him to a third country because they can't send him to El Salvador. The reason they can then send him to that third country is because the Supreme Court ruled that this Trump administration can send people to third countries, countries they've never been, countries that they're not from, just because they need to expedite their process of shedding as many people that they don't like from this country as possible based on their racial biases. They don't want the trial. Remember all those charges that Pam Bondi was talking about? Remember Pam Bondi was like, yo, I mean, there's going to be human trafficking charges. There's going to be assault charges. There's going to be drug smuggling charges. There's going to be pencil breaking charges. It's constant. All the charges that they said that they'd have from him. And we're like, good. Actually, if he committed all those crimes, go through the legal process, convict him, and send his ass. But they don't even want to do that. Isn't that suspicious? Isn't it suspicious that the people who said they have all these open and shut cases don't want to open nor shut those cases? What they want to do, they waited on the Supreme Court to give him an extra level of authoritative power to send anybody out that he wants. So because of the third country provision or the ruling that the Supreme Court gave him, they're trying to now use that on Kilmar Garcia because the first route didn't work out. You know what was included in that first route? I want you guys to see this. Part of the filing that Abreu Garcia's attorneys put forward was some of the conditions that he endured while he was in CECOT down in El Salvador. I want to show you that was mentioned in this. We're going to start right here at the 115 point. In May of 2023, a leading human rights organization in El Salvador released a comprehensive report detailing severe human rights abuses within the country's prison system, especially in CECOT, where they sent Kilmar Garcia. The investigation documented the deaths of 153 inmates between March of 2022 and March of 2023, attributing many to torture, beatings, mechanical asphyxiation, in other words, strangulation, and lack of medical attention. Autopsies revealed common patterns of lacerations, hematomas, sharp object wounds, and signs of choking or strangulation. Survivors, the ones who made it out, at least not out of the prison, just out of death, reported being forced to pick food off the floor with their mouths, subjected to electric shocks, and exposed untreated skin fungus epidemics. Isn't that crazy? A little bit more. Here's the blue part. This is what they highlighted in this particular posting. Abreu Garcia reports that he was subjected to severe mistreatment upon arrival at that prison, including, but not limited to, severe beating, severe sleep deprivation, inadequate nutrition, and psychological torture. That's the first part. This is what he's alleging. His attorneys are alleging that went on during that prison. And the reason I read that first part before I got to Abreu Garcia's accusations about how he was mistreated and tortured in that prison is because it's not just him. Again, this human rights organization in the country pointed out these 153 other inmates went through similar tortures, beatings, and deaths. Just want to point that out. Not just 153 went through it. 153 died. There's more. There's more. Again, I want you guys to remember, this is what they're fighting to send people to. This is the guy that Donald Trump invited into the White House and had discussions about the homegrowns being next. Keep all of this in mind. They say so much to you, and we need to begin to absorb it. Here's more of what happened in that prison. Upon arrival at CCOT, detainees were greeted by a prison official who stated, "Welcome to CCOT. Whoever enters here doesn't leave." Abrego Garcia was then forced to strip, issued some prison clothing, that's standard, and subject to physical abuse, including being kicked in the legs with boots and struck on his head and arms to make him change clothes faster. His head was shaved. We saw all that happen, and he was frog marched into cell 15, hidden by wooden batons all along the way. Here's that next part. Abrego Garcia and 20 other Salvadorians were forced to kneel from approximately 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. overnight, with guards striking anyone who fell from exhaustion. And also during that time, Abrego Garcia was denied bathroom access and he soiled himself. So how many other folks were denied bathroom access, denied any medical attention? And in fact, why would you give someone medical attention when you're imposing the pain and grief and torture on them? Strangulation, death, sharp object wounds. This is a torture prison. That's the whole purpose. In fact, they kind of told him that. They straight up mentioned how, no, we're going to put you in these prisons with these other folks, and there's going to be all kinds of fights and disruptions and murder going on. And they're going to turn away and let it happen because that's the purpose. The whole purpose of this is to try and tell people we're a brutal dictatorship and we will punish, harm you, and murder you if you're the wrong kind of person. You may think it sounds like it's overblown, but I'm just reading from what people that have experienced what's going on in this place pointed out. And also the people that are advocating it, celebrating these revelations. Listen to the people that tell you they're hateful because they consistently tell you that they're hateful. Oh, this is a great part about this. I want to read this next part here. After approximately 1 week at CCOT, prison director and other officials separated 21 Salvadorans who had arrived together. 12 individuals with visible gang-related tattoos were moved to another cell, while Abrego Garcia remained with 8 others who, like him, upon information and belief, had no gang affiliations or tattoos. They separated him and 8 others from the folks that they knew were actual gang members. Again, that original complaint from the original accusation from our Department of Justice about him being a gang member, as he's there in the country where they know where these gang members and what their identifiable features are, they separated him from them. As reflected by a segregation, the Salvadoran authorities recognized that plaintiff Abrego Garcia was not affiliated with any gang, and that around this time, prison officials explicitly acknowledged that his tattoos were not gang-related, telling him, your tattoos are fine. Those same tattoos that Donald Trump pulled that picture up and wrote in Times New Roman font, MS13, on his knuckles, because apparently he's that stupid and he knows that the rest of the country is too. Listen, man, we're sitting there looking at it go down in real time. I only have a couple minutes left. I want to read one more aspect of this devastating situation that they did to this guy. Because again, this is part of the complaint, and this is part of what they want to send him to another country's prison for, along with American citizens. While at CCOT, prison officials repeatedly told Abrego Garcia that they would transfer him to the cells containing gang members, who they assured him would, quote, tear him apart. Why would you threaten a gang member, according to the United States Department of Justice, to cells where there's gang members where they would tear him apart? I thought he's a gang member. They even said we'll use the threat of sending someone who's not a gang member into prison, into cells with other gang members that they hope would tear him apart. I mean, that's their assumption. Indeed, plaintiff Abrego Garcia repeatedly observed prisoners in nearby cells who he understood to be gang members violently harm each other with no intervention from guards or personnel. Screams from nearby cells would similarly ring out throughout the night without any response from prison guards or on personnel. They're on their, I guess, their shifts. The whole point is to have that violence. The entire point is to do it that way. I saw someone here point out they're wondering about that gay hairstylist. I believe he was a stylist that was also swept up and sent off to this prison. He was another guy. So if everybody thinks everyone's just obsessed with Kilmar Garcia, what it is he's a highlighting point of the way that this administration is doing things. And I'm gonna show you what Kristi Noem said about the way that they do things when she was asked about that specific hairstylist that was also sent off to this prison and hasn't been heard from since, at least from what I've seen. If someone else has heard from the developments around this guy's story, please tell me. Because right now, or at least as of what, this was probably a month or two ago, they don't give a damn. Watch.
Andrew Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela. He fled Venezuela fearing gang violence because of his opposition to the Maduro dictatorship and his sexual orientation. He presented himself at a port of entry and requested asylum. His claim was found to be credible, and he was placed in detention to await a full hearing. But he never received a full hearing because you put him on one of those planes to El Salvador, where he still is today. Listen to me. He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally. He presented at a port of entry. He tried to do it the legal way. And to this date, the only evidence your department has presented to justify his imprisonment is that he had 2 tattoos, one that said mom and one that said dad. Do you have any other evidence to present for why this individual should be locked up in El Salvador?
Sir, every case is used
Do you have
the
any-
same protocols and the same processes and inputs.
Do you have any
that
evidence
that
other than the
law enforcement
tattoos that
officers
say
use
mom
in
or
criminal
dad for why
cases?
this
So it's
individual
not
should be
just on
locked up?
tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
You have not
who they're
presented
spending
any
time
other
with,
evidence,
criminal
nor has your
activities.
department.
The cases
Reclaiming
will
my
look
time,
exactly the
during
same
your
as it is.
confirmation.
They have no evidence. They don't care to have evidence. It's an authoritarian regime that occupies the White House. That hairstylist is probably no longer with us. I'm just assuming. I can't say so. I hope that he is. But either way, no one's really talking about him. And who knows how many others that are in this similar situation, sent off to this prison, and in the hopes of this president, other prisons in other third countries that people have never been to, and finding new ways to take away people's citizenship that have been here, that have come in the legal route. Kristi Noem was just in Alligator Alcatraz talking about how people, if they come into the immigration system correctly, will process it and will do it the right way. But if we catch you on the streets, we're going to send you away. That guy did it the right way. And as he was going through that process of doing it the right way, and he had a legitimate case for asylum, they send him away. And they hope that he's dead. They hope that he was tortured and murdered. I'm over time. John's show started. Glad you guys came again today. Again, no watch party tomorrow, so save your drinks. Keep the vodka on the shelf. Be safe. Save it for the actual 4th of July celebrations that you have. We'll do it all next week again on Monday, the best damn day of the week. Glad you guys are here. Glad you guys continue to be here. Keep sharing it, you guys. Let everybody know what we're doing, man. We're trying to get something built here, you know? I mean, this is a little bit, it's a looser version, but damn, let's have some fun. Thank you guys. All the Dragon, Lug Dragon is still here, and your guys' show started. I'm happy you guys are still with us. Thanks, Ma. What's going on, Ma? We'll see you guys later. Have a good weekend. It's a 3-day weekend. Try to do something better for our country because a lot of destruction is happening. We'll see what happens with this vote. We'll see you guys later. Have fun.